I helped her get pregnant in 4 weeks. Before we met, she had been trying for 8 years unsuccessfully. And she was doing all the right things in those 8 years. IVF, she had good embryos, perfect blood work. She'd been seeing naturopaths. She did acupuncture every week for a year, but every cycle failed. Doctors told her it was unexplained infertility. They were wrong. What was missed cost her years, until we found out and she got pregnant in just 4 weeks. If you've been told that your infertility is unexplained, keep watching, because this could be the answer that you've been searching for. I'm Jaya, a natural fertility expert. I've been helping women like you get pregnant for over 15 years. Let's talk about unexplained infertility. It is one of the most frustrating diagnoses that you can get. It's what doctors say when they don't really know what's wrong. But here's the truth. Most infertility isn't unexplained at all. Something is being missed. And just going to a natural health practitioner doesn't always guarantee that they'll know either. That's exactly what happened to my patient, Amy. She had been trying for 8 years, perfect embryos, perfect lining, every test looked normal, but every IVF cycle failed. Doctors just told her it was bad luck, but there was no real explanation, but I knew there had to be a reason. I don't know if it's the OCD type A in me, but I love a challenge and I love diving deep into what could be the problem, because unless we know where the root problem is and what is really going on, we don't know what our next steps are to fix it. So we dug deeper and found something that has never been checked, something that most fertility doctors don't even test for, and neither do a lot of natural health practitioners working in infertility either. If you like the info that you're getting so far, drop me a like and subscribe. Thank you so much, it really helps me grow the channel. Let me tell you what I found. Her doctor had done all the conventional testing, had done all the blood work, done her hormones on day 2 or 3 to check a baseline, had done ultrasounds with checking progesterone after ovulation, and basic nutrition testing like thyroid, iron studies, and vitamin D. So all of that was done and everything was pretty normal. She also did weekly acupuncture for a year and took herbs, saw naturopaths and nutritionists, but no one could really tell her what was wrong. But there was a huge gap in this approach, and this is what I find often. Conventional fertility testing is designed to check that if you're ovulating, but the tests don't go beyond that. It focuses on a broad population average rather than what's actually happening in your body and where your ideal health should be for fertility. And this absolutely works for some people, but if you're sitting in the complex infertility area, it's not going to work for you. Whereas functional medicine will take a different approach. Instead of just checking if things are in the range, we looked at optimal hormone levels, because what's considered normal in conventional medicine is often not ideal for fertility in our world. And this is why I love this approach, and it is an essential part of my practice, because finding the problem is really integral into knowing what path we need to take to fix it. And once you have that clarity in knowing where you're heading, that's when you get the magic and that's when you get the results. Okay, let's talk about Amy though. We actually had all the information there because she had had years of infertility. So she'd done a lot of the work already, but there was a major red flag, and that was her estrogen. She tested her estrogen on day 2, which was in a healthy range, but when we looked at her mid-luteal estrogen, the results were pretty shocking. And when I say mid-luteal, I mean a week, 7 days after ovulation, that where we normally test progesterone, we also like to check estrogen. And this is a little thing that I always look at, and I find that a lot of other practitioners are not looking at this as well. Okay, so her estrogen was more than double the healthy range. I'm going to put it up here on the screen, but for the reference range that I like to look at is between 3 and 500, and hers was sitting over 1,000. And this was silently sabotaging her embryo transfer. Estrogen excess is not recognized by conventional medicine, so your doctor will never see this as an issue. And they never see an upper limit as being too high in a general sense. But I have seen it too many times and treated it and seen such amazing results that I would never ignore it now. And let me tell you why this is a problem. Because excess estrogen is a problem because it interferes with how effective your progesterone is working. And this makes it impossible for an embryo to properly implant, even with extra progesterone support. So what's happening here, especially in Amy's case, was that her excess estrogen was interfering with her progesterone and it was affecting how that implantation was working every time. Let me now walk you through the simple 4-week plan that fixed it for Amy. So Amy had 1 embryo left. She was desperate to transfer it immediately, but I told her, give me 8 to 12 weeks. That's how long we needed to really clear out the excess estrogen, but she would only give me 4. So it wasn't ideal, but I completely get that she didn't want to wait any longer. and I've worked with plenty of women in this situation. So I will preface this by saying that not all women will get this result in 4 weeks. It was a pretty tight schedule. Some women, they'll just need a little bit longer. But what we did with Amy is we went in pretty hard, pretty high with specific supplements, and we really tried to go at it really hard and fast. I wouldn't recommend that for everyone, and it's not something that all people will be able to tolerate. So it's also about finding what works for you rather than going, I need to do it just in 4 weeks. But here's what we did. We did really targeted supplements to clear estrogen. So specifically, she was using DIM, she was using broccoli at quite high doses. We were making sure that her bowels were regular. So being able to poo regularly is a key part of moving excessive estrogen. So calcium D-glucarate was another one that we used as well. I also had her on all of the key supplements for IVF. So we had her on antioxidants, we had her on CoQ10, we had her on nicotinamide riboside, all of those things as well. We did acupuncture regularly to balance her hormones. But the other key factor that was really important is we had some really specific diet changes. I had her on flaxseed, a few tablespoons a day. So she was having a fair amount of it because flaxseed is great at clearing excess estrogen. We had her on fiber and we had her on an anti-inflammatory diet. So the gut is just so important with how we respond to estrogen as well. It's also really important to know what's happening with your hormones before you start implementing some of these practices. I've seen things go the other way, where people have done a lot of estrogen clearing, thinking that they had the symptoms of it, but hadn't actually tested their results. And they saw some pretty hectic changes with their cycles. They either lost their period or they had very light periods and really felt some quite significant changes. So it's really important to test all of this first before making these implementations. So 4 weeks later, Amy went in for her embryo transfer, and for the first time in 8 years, she got a positive pregnancy test. Here's the thing though, Amy didn't need another round of IVF. She didn't need to do another collection. She needed to fix a hidden hormone imbalance that was blocking implantation. Once we cleared that excess estrogen, her body could finally hold on to a pregnancy. After 8 years, she got her first positive pregnancy test without changing anything else than what we talked about. So it wasn't really complex, it wasn't really hard, and this could be part of your story too. It might be that there's little pieces hidden in your story already that are little red flags that maybe you haven't discovered yet. So sometimes another set of eyes on your work, another person, can make all the difference there. I hope you found this useful. This won't be the answer for everyone, but it's still one to consider if you're struggling with recurrent implantation failure. It's also important that we recognize a simple approach before going deep into complex fertility treatments. Speaking of a simple approach, in this video here, I'm sharing a surprising nutrient in your diet that could be sabotaging your fertility. Click here to find out more. Let me know what you think.